My name is Robert Smalls, and I was born a slave in Beaufort, South Carolina in 1839. My mother Lydia was a house slave, and while my life was more comfortable than many, she made sure I understood the truth of being a slave. She took me to the jail yard to watch whippings and to the slave auctions to see men, women, and children sold like cattle. She wanted me to feel the cruelty in my bones, to know that this was not a life to become complacent with. It was a lesson that stayed with me, and a fire that would never go out. When I was 12, my master, Henry McKee, sent me to Charleston. I worked a series of jobs, a waiter, a lamplighter, but my destiny was on the water. I found work on the docks, and the wharves became my classroom. I learned to navigate the currents and read the tides. Bear with me. This back history is critical to how I was able to escape. My skills at the docks eventually earned me a position on the steamship Planter. I started as a deckhand, but by late 1861 I was the wheelman. As the wheelman, I was the virtual pilot of the ship, the man who steered her through every channel and around every sandbar. I had the knowledge, the expertise, and the responsibility of a pilot. But because I was black, I was not allowed to hold the official title. The Confederacy relied on my skill to transport cannons, lay sea mines, and survey waterways for their war effort. Yet they saw me as nothing more than property. That contradiction was a constant reminder of why my freedom was worth risking everything for. Every mission was a lesson for me. I mapped their defenses in my mind, remembering the locations of minefields and the positions of every fort. Little did they know this knowledge, which they so freely gave me, would become my greatest weapon, a window of opportunity. Since April 1861, the Union had been enforcing a naval blockade on Charleston to cripple the South's economy. The Planter had become a vital armed transport for the Confederacy, moving heavy cannons and laying sea mines. She was a valuable military asset, and the rebels were foolishly overconfident in her security. In April 1862, I began to hatch my plan with my fellow crewmen. We knew it was a venture, fraught with likely failure and possible death. If we were caught, it meant certain death for all of us. I had a clear-eyed view of the risks, but my wife and my children were a more powerful force than any fear. I had been secretly gathering intelligence for months, but the 2 weeks leading up to the escape were critical. The Planter was tasked with moving cannons and surveying the waters, and with every trip, I was collecting crucial, up-to-the-minute information. I was piloting the ship on missions to survey sandbars, destroy lighthouses, and lay sea mines in the Edisto and Stono rivers. I was mapping their defenses in my head, the locations of every minefield, and the positioning of every Confederate fort. This was more than just a job. It was an intelligence mission in disguise. And that knowledge, which only I and my crew possessed, was the ace up my sleeve. On the night of May 12, 1862, fate gave us the perfect chance. The 3 white officers, including Captain Relier, made the fateful mistake of leaving the ship for the night to visit their families. This was a direct violation of their naval policy, but it was a rule that was often disregarded. They were so blinded by their own racial prejudice that they could not even imagine that their enslaved crew would ever be a strategic threat. Their arrogance was their Achilles heel. I knew about a broken Confederate guard boat and impending martial law, and I knew this was our only chance. The time to act was now. Just before dawn on May 13th, 1862, I set my plan in motion. The air was cool and damp, and a dense fog hung low over the harbor, clinging to the water and blurring the lights of the city. I put on a white shirt and a dress jacket, and then, most importantly, I put on Captain Relier's distinctive straw hat. It helped hide my face and complete the disguise. At 2 in the morning, I gave the order to my crew to light the engines. The silence of the night was deafening, broken only by the rhythmic churn of the engines coming to life. We quietly raised the Confederate and South Carolina flags as a decoy, then eased the ship away from the dock. The fog was both a blessing and a curse. It hid us from view, but also made navigation a challenge. Our first stop was the West Atlantic Wharf, where my wife Hannah, our 2 children, and the families of the other crew members were waiting, hidden in the hold of another steamer. With everyone on board, our perilous adventure truly began. The ship's engines hummed a steady, low rhythm as we sped toward the mouth of the harbor. The greatest challenge still ahead, navigating the gauntlet of Confederate forts and artillery stations, including the formidable Fort Sumter. My years of piloting the harbor and my cool demeanor were all that stood between us and certain death. I could feel my heart pounding in my chest, a frantic drumbeat against the stillness of the pre-dawn air. As we approached each checkpoint, I would lean on the window and fold my arms just as Captain Relier did, then blow the correct coded whistle. I was a man playing a part for the highest stakes imaginable. We passed 5 different forts, and our ruse was so perfect that we passed Fort Sumter as coolly as if General Ripley was on board. The alarm didn't sound until we were well out of range. That feeling of passing the last fort and knowing we were clear was like nothing else on earth. It was the psychological turning point from being an escapee to a man in command of his own destiny. As we neared the Union blockade, the USS Onward caught sight of us, a Union ship. They prepared to fire. I knew what to do. I ordered my crew to lower the Confederate flags and hoist a makeshift flag of truce, a white bedsheet my wife Hannah had brought on board. That bedsheet was everything. It was a tool of subjugation turned into a symbol of our liberation. The Union attack was averted, and as we pulled alongside the Onward, I raised Captain Relier's hat. "And good morning, sir. I've brought you some of the old United States guns, sir." In less than 4 hours, I had delivered myself and 16 other African Americans from slavery to freedom.